Hello and welcome to Ziggy Wheels. I'm PD and that is the new Yamaha R15 version 3. But of course you know that, and you might have watched our first review of the motorcycle where Karthik answered most of your questions. But that was on the racetrack. Now we've got the bike with us in the real world and we've got some questions of our own.
But before we carry on, don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell to stay notified.
We'll start things off with that quintessential Indian question, kitna deti hai? And on that front, this R15 manages almost 48 kilometers per liter on the highway. Impressive. But what's more impressive is that it manages even more than that in the city. In fact, it's one of the few bikes we have tested that actually has a better city efficiency than the highway efficiency. But how is that? Well, that's because the engine is extremely tractable. You can pull from speeds as low as 20 kilometers per hour in 4th gear, and in the city we found ourselves in 4th and 5th very often. So does that mean it handles city duties well? Yes, it does. Its fantastic tractability is down to two things primarily. Firstly, the VVA or the variable valve actuation system that allows for two different valve timings, one at lower RPM and one at higher RPM, and that allows for plenty of grunt throughout the rev range. And the second thing is that sprocket at the back, which is now larger compared to the version 2, which means that the overall gearing is now shorter. At 139 kilos, it is a fairly light motorcycle. Okay, it's a couple of kilos more than the version 2. But what Yamaha has done to compensate is make the wheelbase now shorter by almost 20 millimeters and also pull the rake in, which means the version 3 is a lot more nimble than the version 2. So going through traffic just feels second nature. And the bike doesn't feel twitchy at that either. And what also helps in the city is that slip and assist clutch, which makes for a very light clutch action, which means even in bumper-to-bumper traffic, your left hand remains stress-free. And then what about heating, you might ask? A lot of people worry that full-fed bikes run the risk of running hot in stop-and-go traffic. But not the R15. Its 155cc motor runs really cool and there are no hot spots anywhere on the bike when you're riding. But is there any issue in the city? Well, yes, one in particular, and that has to do with the way you sit on the motorcycle. Make no mistake, the R15 V3 has a very aggressive riding posture, a pakka super sport in that nature, which means you have very high and rear set foot pegs, you've got low set handlebars and a tall seat. At 815mm, that seat height might feel much for someone who's under 5'5", especially in stop-and-go traffic because you will be on tiptoes. But if you're taller than that, it's not a big problem because getting your feet down is easy as the bike is narrow and even managing that weight feels okay because the bike feels quite light. The R15 version 2 was a bit difficult for taller riders to manage as the handlebars were too close to the seat and that made for an awkward riding position. But since the handlebars have now been moved further out, even riders who are over 6 feet tall will be comfortable on this version 3. So while you do have a fairly neutral posture with the handlebar, while taking U-turns in the city, you have to be careful as the bars come very close to the tank when you take that U-turn and that can feel a bit unnerving. So while the rider's seat is decently comfortable, the same can't be said about the pillion seat. Yes, it's not as tall as it was on the R15 version 2, but it's still quite tall nonetheless. Then the seat area is quite small and the padding itself is fairly hard. To make things worse, there's nothing for the pillion to grab onto either, and before you disagree, these floating panels aren't grab handles. If you put pressure on them, you might end up damaging them. So while you can take a girlfriend as a pillion on the bike, after a long ride, you're just giving her one more reason to dump you. Does it fare better on long distances though? At highway speeds, the fairing does help quite a bit with wind blast. But are there some issues? Yes. The handlebars are quite low, so you lean quite a bit towards them. So you end up craning your neck up all the time and that can hurt over long periods of riding. Thankfully, there's enough room on the seat to move back and forth to change your riding position and take some stress off your neck. But there's no getting around the fact that if you're going to be keeping the throttle open for extended durations, your right wrist will take quite the beating. But hey, you can at least rest your left wrist, right? So while some of you might be okay with the extreme posture, for most of us it does take quite a bit of getting used to, and especially so if you, like me, are out of shape. So how does it perform on the highway then? Well, at 100 km per hour in 6th gear, it's doing about 7,000 RPM. That's a little before the VVA kicks in. And this really is the sweet spot. Some mild vibes do begin to creep in at this point, but they are very manageable. Take the speeds above that though, and you get a distinct buzz in the handlebars. So short bursts of higher speed are fine, but if you try and sustain them, it can get a bit stressful. Overall refinement though is definitely decent, but it's nowhere close to being the best in class. But what does feel like is among the best in class is that gearbox. The shifting is just muska. Gear shifts happen with absolute precision, with a nice soft click, and it actually makes the act of shifting gears very pleasurable. Plus, because of that slipper clutch, you can even downshift multiple gears at once without any fear of locking up the rear wheel. Even the straight line performance is quite impressive. In the run to 60 kph, it's not just quicker than the version 2, it's actually quicker than all the 200 that we have tested, such as the Apache RTR 200, the Pulsar NS 200, and even the Yamaha FZ25. Even up to 100 kph, it's just the FZ25 that's quicker than this. But it's in the roll-on acceleration in 3rd and 4th gear where the small engine's weaknesses really show up. It's not as quick as the 200s here, but it is quicker than most of the 160s, but not all. So how does the R15 V3 deal with real-world roads with bumps and potholes and what have you not? Well, you'd expect that a bike with such aggressive ergonomics would suck on bad roads, but not the R15. The front forks on the Indian R15 V3 are conventional telescopic units, not the upside down ones the bike gets in international markets. But these 41mm units do a pretty good job. The front end does feel a little bit soft, but then it copes with bad roads really well. The rear, on the other hand, while it handles bumps quite well, while going through potholes or sharp dips, it does give you a jhatka up your backside. And there's no real way around this jhatka, as the rear linked monoshock isn't adjustable at all. But one of the most impressive bits about this R15 is that it has a massive ground clearance of 170mm. That, combined with its short wheelbase, is enough for it to cross speed breakers of almost any size without scraping its underbelly. But how does it handle? Now, the R15 was always known for its great handling rather than outright performance. Karthik rode this bike, the version 3, on the track, and he came back really impressed with its handling. Thankfully, that holds true even in the real world. The turn lanes are beautifully controlled, and even change of direction is quite quick. But it never feels unnerving, and the bike feels planted through the corners. Now, the R15 V3 comes with MRF Zapper bias ply tires at both ends as standard. But our test bike here has come with the optional rear Metzeler, which is a radial. Now, while we can't comment on how the stock rear feels, the stock front, as long as the road is smooth, feels absolutely fine. But it's on mid-corner bumps where it feels a bit squishy and jittery. Honestly, Yamaha should have just given Metzeler radials at both ends as standard. From what we know, the optional Metzeler rear radial from the Yamaha showroom would have set you back about 9 to 10,000 rupees. But Yamaha is in the middle of revising these prices, so we'll have new prices for you soon. But what about the brakes, you ask? Well, the version 3 carries its braking setup over from that on the FZ25, but the bite is nowhere as sharp. While it works well in most conditions, braking distances from both 60 and 80 km per hour are about 3 to 4 meters more than those from the FZ25. But the biggest problem is, if you go hard on the front brake, the back end feels really light and skittish. Now, this lack of feel from the front might have been okay if the bike came with ABS, but sadly that's not even offered as an option. And finally, what about the feel-good factor? With its slim LED headlights, floating tail panels and narrow tail light, it really does look like the love child of the R6 and the previous generation Honda CBR 600RR. And by that, we mean it looks good. A proper head turner. And even though Yamaha has gotten rid of the analog tachometer, the all LCD instrument cluster does feel quite premium. But while overall it does feel like a bike that's been put together really well, we can't help notice the odd welds, some tacky plastics, and even some strange panel gaps. And speaking about that headlight, it looks great, but it's pretty useless whether on low beam or high. The original R15 variant came out 10 years back, really blew our minds thanks to its fantastic handling package, its cutting edge engine, and its premium build. So that really does beg the question, does this new R15 do enough to make it desirable in today's day and age? With the updates to its engine, it can now leave bikes with even larger engine capacities behind, and the handling is now better than it ever was. Sure, there are some misses, like the brakes could have been better, ABS could have been offered as standard, and the bike certainly needs radial tires from the get-go. And some might even argue that this one should have come with the upside-down forks from the international version. And thanks to the even more aggressive riding posture, it's not really the best choice for commuting or for touring. But there are no two ways about it. Whether you're on a twisty mountain road or on a racetrack, no other bike in this price category, of course, will put such a big smile on your face every single time.